Hi, everyone. Thanks for showing up tonight. I am Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. We're going to talk tonight about the Common Data Set, what it is, how you can use it, what information is included in it, and particularly how it can help you find colleges for your student where they're likely to get merit scholarships. So before we get started, I would love if people can put in the chat a little information about themselves, mainly where you're watching from, what year in high school your student is in, how much, if you know anything about the common data set, have you looked at a common data set? Just as a quick, another abbreviation for it is called CDS, in case you hear that or you see that, and I might actually even say that tonight, so because it's easier to say than the full common data set. So, just wanted to see a little bit or hear a little bit more from everyone who is out here tonight. So good. So, lots of people from different parts of the country. I see Boston, East Coast, West Coast. Somebody said they've taken a look at a common data set. They're members of the Facebook group. All good. Thank you so much for sharing this information about yourself. And just a little housekeeping. Um, this is recorded. We try and get the recording out tomorrow. There'll be an email with a link to the recording. And we also put all of our webinars, and we do lots of different webinars on different topics on our YouTube channel. I don't have a quick link to it, but basically, if you go to YouTube and you type in Road Number Two College, you'll find our YouTube and lots of videos on lots of different topics. Great. Oh, somebody I see knows more about the common data set because they've already zoomed in on section H2A, which we will talk about tonight. Okay, so let me share some quick slides to give a few people a little bit more background on the common data set who aren't familiar with it, and then we're going to skip and look at one. So let me pull up my slides. Okay. And actually, let me put my slides. Oh, I see where my slides are. Okay. Uh, let's share. Hmm. Okay. Can people say in chat whether or not they are seeing the title page of the slides? Yes. Okay, thanks. Sometimes I have too many tabs open and I sometimes show the wrong screen, but okay, good. So we're going to talk about common data set and how you use it to research colleges. I'm going to explain to you a little bit more about the common data set, the different sections, and we'll pull one up to share it. Just for people who don't know, let me put up my chat. You guys can ask questions along the way. So the common data set, I actually don't know what year it started, but it is a collaboration, and it started as a collaboration between the College Board, that infamous organization that is behind the SAT and APs and other things that high school students have to deal with. So it's a collaboration between the College Board, U.S. News and World Report, and Peterson's. And the quick and dirty story is that honestly, way back when, before the internet, U.S. News and World Report said to colleges, hey, you give us all this information and we'll create these guides and we'll promote your colleges and your different programs, and we'll make the rankings, and that's kind of how this started. And for those of you who don't know, Peterson's is I don't really know when Peterson's got involved, but they are a private company and they are really the primary source of um, if you want it as a business, if you want to license the common data set, you can only license it in its totality from Peterson's. So a lot of websites, including ours, we license data from Peterson's, and they give you data from or common data set data from all the colleges and all the fields that you could possibly want, and then you can do with it as you wish. So those are the three companies that are involved. And as you're going to see, as the name implies, that there is a pretty common structure as to how colleges share this information. And again, probably started with U.S. News and World Report, making it easy, saying, "Hey, this is the template, this is the format. If you provide this information in return, we're gonna promote your colleges through our publications." How the College Board got involved, I actually don't know, but they seem to always be involved in everything college related. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, just some quick pros and cons. I personally think that the Common Data Set is the best source of data out there on colleges. There's another source that you might have heard about called iPads. That's the government website and the government database. It's also good. The main problem with iPads is that it lags from a time perspective, and I'll explain the timing of the Common Data Set. It's a little, older data. And the other thing about iPads, it actually doesn't have all the detailed data that you can find in the Common Data Set. So although it is completely free, and Common Data Set on some level is free, but iPads is more cumbersome to kind of get at if you want to kind of get the information for a lot of different colleges. The consumer-facing website for iPads is called College Navigator. Again, it's a government website, definitely worth looking into. Those are the two major sources of college data. Some of the cons about the Common Data Set, I would say not every college publicly posts it. Every college actually shares their data with Peterson, so that is one advantage of a business being able to license the data. You do get Common Data Set from all the colleges, even if a college doesn't post their Common Data Set publicly. And that was the case for many years with Columbia University. They didn't publish their data publicly, but they shared it with Peterson's. They shared it with U.S. News and World Report. So as a media website, you could get their data. There's probably a very minor number of colleges that do that these days, but you might run into one here or there. This is actually the other con, and this relates not just to the Common Data Set, it kind of relates to all college data out there. It's just something to know, is that it's never like fact checked. It's never double checked. Whatever the colleges report is just taken at face value. There's nobody that kind of looks over the Common Data Set information and says, "Hey, this doesn't make sense," or is this really the correct information? The same thing goes for iPads. Um, Good and bad. I mean, I personally think, obviously in this day and age with what's going on with the federal government, there's nobody, there's no bandwidth to do that type of work, but there could have and should have been along the ways like some quick, checks as to why some data might not have made sense. But I'm just telling you that because once in a while you will run into some calculations, and we actually even do calculations with the Common Data Set, and sometimes we will get weird results because somebody probably misreported the information. And when you start like calculating it and using it, something, it doesn't turn out, it creates negative numbers or creates numbers that are over 100%. And when that happens, we don't, again, also have the bandwidth to reach out to every college. But if you see that on any website, I would just kind of realize that somebody might not have reported the information correctly because some of this information is manually reported, and to just reach out to the college and say, "Hey, I was looking at this information. It doesn't make sense. Can you give me the more accurate data?" So that's just some information and background. So in terms of the timing of the common data set, actually, this is an old example. I apologize, but let's just go with what I have here. So if you see a common data set that says, like in this case, 2023, 2024, what that number represents is the academic year that the data is covering. So that means that it's a common data set that has that covers students who enrolled in college in the fall of 2023 and obviously stayed in college through June or through 2024. So the reason why I say that is if you think about it, if a student enrolled in 2023, that means that they sent in their application, could have been in the fall of 2022 or the winter of 2023. So the admission data that the common data set is from, the admission season of this for the students who are enrolling in that fall. The reason why I'm just emphasizing this is people always want to see, oh, what's the latest data? And they think that if we just got some numbers for some colleges from early decision, how come that isn't reflected in the common data set? And that's because that data just hasn't been collected even by the colleges and distributed. Let me tell you one other thing about the timing. So if you think about it, students have to enroll and they have to start college in the fall, in this case of 2023. A college is the office that actually creates and collects the data for the common data set is called the Office of Institutional Research. They don't usually start collecting the data until December or January of the following year because they have to wait till students actually enroll and all the sub departments kind of get their information and then they roll it up to the Department of Institutional Research. And then on the early side, some colleges might publish their common data sets kind of now, maybe March, but the majority, it's just kind of like from the, how it takes all the time to gather this information, obviously get it reviewed or things like that. Majority of colleges don't put their common data set, their most recent common data set out on their websites until like May or June of that academic year. And then from a compilation standpoint, for a company like Peterson's, they are not publishing the most recent common data set from all the colleges until July of August during the summer. So um, I'm just explaining this because a lot of people say like, well, what's the most up-to-date information? That is the most up-to-date information, but it's not going to be like data that just happened, in November or December of this year. And although you can look at some early decision data, and you should, the reason why we choose and most websites don't necessarily publish like one-off schools and their early decision data is because if you can't get it for all schools, it's not right to kind of show it for one or two or a handful, not from an equity standpoint, but just from the fact that you're not comparing data from the same time period. So, but rest assured, we have and most websites have what is considered the most up-to-date data, but it's going to be the common data set that is for the academic year 2024 to 2025. The academic year 2025 to 2026 just hasn't been published by all the colleges yet. Okay, so I'm going to skip now and let's actually pull up an actual common data set. I personally always pull up Tulane's just because it's interesting, but I am willing, if anybody wants to put into the chat, if there's a particular school you're interested in that you want me to pull up the common data set, like fire away, put it in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up Whitman. I haven't seen that one I don't think I've ever pulled it up. So let's pull it up. Okay, I gotta stop sharing. Sorry for a second. Let me stop sharing. Let me. Oop, nope. Sorry. How do Oh, stop share. Sorry. So let me stop share and let me pull up Whitman College. Whitman, sorry. Let me find it first and then I will um Whitman College common data set. Okay, let me share again. Okay. Actually, sorry. Nope, I don't think I shared that properly. Let me get the right. Okay, got it. Okay, can you guys see my Google where it says Whitman College Common Data Set? Just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, thanks. So, to find any college's common data set, you just put in the college name and the word common data set, and hopefully it should bring you to the page on that college's website that lists all the different all the different common data sets that they have. So let's just go directly here, and this is great. So this is the way most colleges have it. They'll kind of have the last 10 years. Sometimes colleges have back as far as they've ever published them, but this is pretty common, like the last 10 years. And you can see that Whitman's most common, or Whitman's most up-to-date common data set is what there is the 2024-2025. So that's covering the academic year of 2024-2025. They don't yet have out the 2025-2026 common data set. So I'm not surprised. This makes sense. So let's pull it up. Okay, so again, most colleges are going to show you like what we're looking at now in Whitman. Some colleges will have it as a PDF. Some college will make you download an Excel file. All might be a little different, but you're going to get similar sections, even though maybe it might be formatted differently. And I am just going to scroll through to show you that there's a ton of information. I'm not going to go through all these sections, but I'm going to go through some of the ones that I think are, most interesting. At the beginning, this is, as it says, just general information, all about, where the college is located. They'll might list who the president is, that type of stuff. Here's the another interesting section. This is on enrollment. And as you can see, because this is for the common data set 2024-2025, it actually even says here, this is for the number of students who, of the following categories as of the institution's official fall reporting date as of October 15th. So that's actually another reason. Colleges don't even start to gather this information. They wait until October 15th to see who is enrolled. You know what? Let me enlarge this a little bit. I think that might help people. Oh, here, let's go. Okay, I'm hoping that's helpful. So, this is, just the breakdown of the undergraduates and graduate students. This might be helpful. Obviously, you can tell Whitman, it doesn't have any graduate programs. They don't have any graduate students even listed. But if this was a larger university, you could, see how many graduate students there are versus undergraduates. This, shows men versus women. Gosh, I am seeing this a lot more in so many of the common data sets where the females are just enrolling at higher numbers than the men. And you could see it here. It's actually pretty pronounced usually when I pull up two lanes. So if you've got sons, for these types of schools, I bet you the schools will have a slightly higher admit rate for male students because they're always trying to even out the gender ratios. So let's move on. Here's ethnicity breakdown if you want to see that, if that's something that's important to you. And I'm just gonna keep going. next section C is also an important and interesting section. Here is the admission information. So again, this is for the first time first year students who applied, were admitted, and enrolled in the fall of 2024. So if they enrolled in 2024, it means that they sent in applications in the fall of 2023 or, in January of 2024. And this is, again, all the information that you might see stats related to about what the admit rate is. It's, based on who number of students who applied, number of students who the college actually admit. You might actually see a number called yield. Yield is the number of students who decided to attend out of the students who were admitted. So this is the whole funnel that you're looking at in terms of numbers. And in this case, also you can break out male versus female. You can kind of see, which is also interesting, that the female to male applications aren't a huge difference as much as the enrolled numbers are. And I guess actually Whitman might have decided, if you look at the numbers, they accepted, it looks like as a percentage basis, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it, that they accepted more women than they did men on a percentage basis, and obviously more women enrolled than men. So again, you can see all the numbers here. Some schools share all of this information in terms of in-state and out-of-state. Some don't, but Whitman's private, and I guess they just want to give you an idea of how many students are coming from in-state versus out-of-state, international. I think this year, because of a lot of things obviously that are going on, we're going to see an impact to international students. So if you're looking at some colleges and want to know, will they be impacted because maybe fewer international students are going to come? It would be worthwhile to look at, well, what was their percentage of international students in the past year or two? So, to see, there are definitely some schools where the percentage could be 15 or 20% of a freshman class was international. In that case, that college is probably shifting and pivoting and is going to accept more U.S. students because they know that there's a risk on accepting and relying on international students. So again, what I always kind of look at these common data sets are they're pieces of a puzzle. All of these, there's a lot of data here. It's all kind of like telling a story that you have to piece together. Okay, here's some more interesting information. May not be pertinent right now, but if your student is at some point accepted, put on a wait list, you can come back to the common data set and say, okay, in past years, how many students have they put on the wait list and how many students have they actually accepted off the wait list? So here you can see like a little over 1,200 students are put on the wait list. And usually if your student is put on the wait list, they are asked to say, do they want to be accepted to stay on the wait list? And in this case, a little over 1,100 students said, yes, I want to stay on the wait list, but only 12 ultimately got off. That was for this year. Honestly, if your student was on a wait list, I would look back at the past 2 or 3 years. You might see a trend or similar numbers. But it's no promise just because of what happened in this admission season for the fall of 2024, if this is going to happen in the coming year, but it's worthwhile to look at how the college handles wait lists. Okay. Continuing on. This section C5 is worth looking at if you have a question about what type of classes are required for that college. Most colleges, it's a standard, standard number and types of classes, but what sometimes varies is the foreign language. So in this case, Whitman only is asking for 2 years of a foreign language. There are colleges kind of on the more selective end that definitely ask for 3 years of a foreign language. So that's a very common question that comes up is, does my student really need to take 3 years of a foreign language? it's up to your student and it's up to kind of the level of selectivity of a college that they're interested in. And if you have any questions about it, definitely come to the Common Data Set and kind of look at what the college is recommending. Uh, okay, here's another interesting section. This is called um, academic and non-academic factors, or it's actually called the admission factors. This is section C7. And this is to me kind of an interesting area that not a lot of people look at. It's the rubrics that the admissions office uses to kind of decide what pieces of an application are important to them and how much weight that they're going to give them in the admissions process. Let me say, most colleges, you're going to look at this section and are going to have rigor of, school classes and the GPA and the admission essay, as very important. Actually, without a doubt, rigor and GPA are going to be always very important. Application essay may not always be listed as very important. Some of the state schools, might list it as just, I don't want to say like, but as important as a level down, or some actually might even say considered. So that it, might be worth looking at as how much of an emphasis does the school place on the essay. Um, Class rank, I have seen more and more and more. Colleges just aren't relying on it. You can see here, it's considered. Honestly, in that considered section, this is not as important, but they say, okay, maybe they might look at it, so they're listing it as considered. And then standardized tests. I'm just going to assume, but I haven't looked, that Whitman is test optional. That's why they're saying that they consider the test scores. But this is also a pretty important line to look at, because I've definitely seen test optional schools where they list the standardized test scores as important. And to me, that's another clue that's saying, okay, the school is test optional, but if your student has a test score, they're going to put some weight on that in terms of their decisions. And it might actually be to your students' benefit if they could share a test score, because even though the school is saying, oh, it's test optional, they're putting some emphasis on the test score. So I would look at this line, and then there's another line in the common data set which I'm also going to point out, which kind of again gives you those clues about even though a school is test optional, how much weight do they put towards a test score. So somebody said, I'm looking at UConn to follow along with what you said, and they list test scores as very important. You see, that's a clue. UConn is saying we're test optional, but yet they're also saying that the test score is very important. So, ever since COVID and so many colleges going test optional, in the years of COVID and the year maybe after COVID, they truly were, test optional. But I think there's going to be a swing back towards, maybe some school, well, we already know and see some schools are now test required, but there's going to be those schools in the middle that still want to play the game and say we're test optional, but they're going to put a high emphasis on test scores. Okay, I see Kelly, you're raising your hand. Do you want to unmute yourself? Or I think I have to, let me see. If I can unmute you, sorry. Do you want to ask a question? Here, go ahead. Oh, Kelly, did you have a question? Did you want to ask?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't actually say the word optional, it just says important. So are we just supposed to assume that the college is optional if it's listed under important for some standardized test scores?
Are you saying in the common data section C7 that we're looking at?
Yes. Yeah. You keep using the word test optional, but
Oh, okay. So test, right. Thank you for clarifying. So the college isn't going to say here if they're test optional or not. They're usually going to say it on their website, like
Okay.
on the admissions section. So here, let's go to Whitman. Oops, sorry. Whitman College admissions. And let's see if they say it here, what they say. Oops, I should have put it, let's say applying to, um, here we're gonna just put in here test optional. Testing policy. So that's what you want to find on the college's website, their testing policy. So here is where Whitman tells you whether or not they're test optional, but what they're telling you on the common data set is if your student sends in a test score, they'll consider it, but they probably truly aren't kind of giving more emphasis to students who share their test scores versus, somebody who said that UConn, who is test optional, is saying on their common data set that they are considering test scores as very important. So it's this college that says they're test optional. That's their testing policy. So if they're test optional, they're gonna accept applications from students who submit a test score and who don't submit a test score. But then when the student submits a test score, it's how do they use that test score in their evaluation? Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Then the non-academic section. I'm just going to point out one other thing, and I have never looked at Whitman College's common data set before. I'm honestly, just looking at it for the first time right now, and it said it has nothing for recommendations, which I'm a little like interested or surprised at. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else here knows. Do they even ask for recommendations? Usually the colleges ask for two recommendations from the guidance counselor and from a teacher. So I'm kind of surprised that they're not telling you anything about how they use that recommendation. So that might be something if my student was applying to Whitman, I might ask Whitman, do you put emphasis on the recommendations or not? Because they're not kind of telling you anything about it here in the common data set. And now there's this section called non-academic factors. So some schools, are giving interviews. Some schools weight the interviews differently, but a lot of schools these days, of course, because of COVID, they dropped interviews. But I guess Whitman is saying if you can get an interview, they will consider it, but it's not as important as some of the other factors. Understandably, things like correct your extracurricular activity, your character, your talent are important. Again, you will see different weighting. Just because I'm familiar with Tulane, I usually bring that up. Tulane actually I think they put like volunteer work and something else as very important. So it always kind of struck me out if Tulane is kind of listing volunteer work that high up, then again, that's another clue that if your student has that type of experience, they really want to hear about it because that's important to them. So, these check marks or X's kind of give you an insight into the admissions office and what they're focusing on. You can see Whitman is saying that the level of an applicant's interest is also another term for demonstrated interest, if you've heard that. And some schools will say that the demonstrated interest is important. So again, Whitman is saying it's considered, but if a school says it's important, I would absolutely make sure that your student takes effort to demonstrate their interest. And lots of easy ways to demonstrate interest. One easiest off the bat is to just open a few emails, maybe click on a few links in those emails. That's one. Another might be, attending an information session. Of course, the ultimate, and not every college expects this, is if you can come visit. So, another could just be sending an email to the admissions office with some questions. So there's lots of ways that you can demonstrate interest, and I would absolutely look at this for your students schools that they're interested in, because all else being equal, if there are multiple candidates and they're all kind of like very equivalent in their test scores and their activities and their recommendations, it could come down to a school saying, hey, I'm going to look at that student's demonstrated interest because that's something that is important to us, and we look at it, and that could be the deciding factor for the college, if they have to make choices between students. So I see here somebody said that Whitman asked for a letter of recommendation from a counselor or a teacher. I would expect that they would have. So I'm kind of actually surprised why this line is blank. So again, if anybody's interested in applying to Whitman, I would have your student ask the admissions officer, why isn't it listed in the common data set? And let's tie these things together. If your student sends an email to the admissions officer asking that, this is a perfect way for them to demonstrate interest. So it just shows how interested that the student is that they're looking at this type of data. Okay, let's keep going. So here, does your institution make use of the SATs and ACTs in admissions decisions? So they're saying yes, they look at it. They haven't said it's required. And in fact, actually, the next section is it's not required for admission. But if you submit it, let's try all this information together. It's not required to apply. They do look at it, but even though they look at it, if you come back here, it's not kind of one of the higher things that's most important for them in making a decision. Um, okay, here's another clue. This line here that says how many students submitted an SAT score and how many students submitted an ACT score. So let me just explain these numbers a little bit more. These numbers are based on the students who actually they applied, they were accepted, and they enrolled. So this is saying that 9% of the students who ultimately enrolled at Whitman also submitted their test score when they applied. This is on the lower side, to be honest. So I would, looking at these numbers, very, confidently say that Whitman is truly test optional. Your student can send in a test score, but they're not going to put a lot of emphasis on it. You will see at other schools, and I'm curious for the person who was looking at UConn, if you want to look at this information on UConn. I know there's other test optional schools that we've researched where they are test optional, but if you look at this number, it could be like 30 or 40% of the students, submitted an SAT score. So kind of let's back into that again. We don't have the ideal information, but if 40% of enrolled students and also submitted their test score, you can only imagine that the number of students who applied with a test score was even higher. So these are little pieces of data that give you clue as to when a school says we're test optional, how seriously test optional are they? Thank you. That person looked. See, 36% of UConn students who enrolled ended up submitting, I'm assuming maybe it's the SAT score. And so you can only assume that the number of students who applied with their SAT score was even higher. Okay, let's keep going because it's already 10 after 9. Here's more information about the breakdown of SAT scores, ACT scores. What's important to understand on these percentiles is if your student is looking at a college that gives merit scholarships, it's really important to know what the 75th percentile of the SAT or the ACT score is, because that's really most likely what the college is looking at if they're going to award merit scholarships. So they want to award their merit scholarship money to the stronger students who are applying to them. And those stronger students are going to be the students who are in that 75th percentile. Because if they can attract more, high scoring students or high performing students or students with higher GPAs, then over time, or maybe not, even in a short period of time, they can start to increase their rankings, which even though a lot of people will say, oh, we're not looking at rankings these days, and you shouldn't necessarily look at them or rely on them, it's still a factor for colleges. I think it's still a factor for it's included, believe it or not, in the bond rating of a college. So, the college's desire to keep increasing their ranking is important, and that's how they're going to use their merit scholarship money to try and attract a stronger student to their college. So, and I'm going to show you on our tool. That's why we focus on the 75th percentile because that's the quartile that the college is going to look at in terms of giving money. Okay, so somebody said we were told by a high school counseling department that merit scholarships are based on PSATs. I don't want to say anything about your counseling department, but that is not true. Maybe what they are talking about is national merit scholarships, which are, part of, the organization that sponsors, the national merit finalists and that type of stuff, but not colleges. Colleges are basing their merit scholarships on SAT scores and ACT scores. Okay. Let's keep going. Then there should be a section here. Oh, yeah, about early decision. Here it is. Does the school offer early decision? These are the dates. Oh, and here is, if you are curious, this is where the early decision admit rates come from. How many students applied early decision? 599. How many were accepted? 114. Another important piece of data, which we calculate and we'll show you in our tool, is for colleges that offer early decision, you want to know what percentage of their overall class they accept early decision. Because a college that is accepting a student early decision obviously means that there are fewer spots available for regular decision. And you will see some colleges, some of the more selective colleges, accept over 40%, even over 50% of their total class early decision. And so what that means is that it just mathematically becomes harder, or the admit rates are lower if your student is applying regular decision because there are fewer spots available and there's usually more applications. So it's just an important number or to look at is if the college is offering early decision, what percentage of the class are they actually taking early decision? So somebody's saying, is it a disadvantage if the student doesn't take the ACT or SAT for merit scholarships? Um, I can't say for sure. There are definitely lots of schools that are giving merit scholarships and they're not basing it on test scores. They have to base it on something. So if they're not basing it on test scores, they probably are, definitely basing it on a GPA. Um, the reason why we focus a little bit more on test scores when we're doing this data work is because, and actually I'm going to show you GPAs. A lot of colleges share lots of information about their SAT and ACT breakdowns, and it's just because it's easy and they have that data. A lot of colleges do not share the breakdown of their GPA distribution. So they might share average GPA, but you just don't know, what the higher percentiles are for the GPA range. The other thing is there's a strong feeling that GPAs are just inflated these days. So so I'm not saying this to force that your student should take the SAT, ACT. Although I actually do believe that every student should take the test. I just don't think they have to use the test to apply. It's good to take the exam so your student knows kind of where they fell. and it could be useful to use that information from a research standpoint. And then your student can decide whether to submit it or not. But we're going to see that for whatever colleges just don't share as much detailed information for GPAs. So let's find that information for the GPAs. Okay. Um, oh, I feel like I might, oops, I might, let's see. I don't know what section it's actually in, but it feels like it should be higher up. Um, okay, so here it is. Sorry, here it is. So I have to give it to Whitman. They are sharing a breakdown of GPAs, um, by the GPA range. Usually this is unweighted. So this could be very helpful if your student doesn't want to apply with the test score. You should be looking at the GPA range. But there's a lot of schools that don't have this information, but good for Whitman that they do. Okay, let's jump now to section H. But before I do that, again, here's information from the Common Data Set if you want to look at things like, what's happening on campus. One thing that some, families are interested in for pro or con, is what about the fraternities, sororities. In this case, they don't seem to be, a big focus at Whitman, since on the lower side, the number of students are in those organizations. But here's also another interesting piece of information about how many students are from out of state. Again, depending on the college, depending on where they're located, that might be something that you're interested to know. Maybe your student is coming from out of state, but the majority of students are in state, and that might mean that that they're going home a lot, something like that. So these are little pieces of information that it's helpful. Also, how many students are living on campus versus off campus. So obviously, in this case, a lot of freshmen are obviously living on campus. Yeah, because only 1% is living off. But and as they get into their upperclassmen years, they start to move off. But 30% isn't that high. So majority of students are staying on campus. Okay. Just know that whatever, if a student, if the college is sharing any sort of tuition information here, it is the tuition information and room and board related to that academic year. So it would be for the 2024-2025 academic year, not the tuition, room and board fees that you're gonna be charged, depending if your student is a senior or a junior. Those numbers haven't even been determined yet. Okay, the next section is section H. This is the money section. This is what talks about financial aid and merit scholarships and from a percentage standpoint, who's getting it. These are like total numbers of how much federal aid Whitman is giving out, how much state aid they're giving out, how much institutional aid. This $41 million. Institutional aid means money that is Whitman's money that they are giving for, it could be for need-based aid and it could be for merit scholarships. So I always think about it that, people talk about, or they, to some extent, or interested or disturbed about, how the colleges decide to give out merit scholarships. But you also have to step back and think colleges are businesses, and this is their money that they are deciding to award to different students. So institutional money, colleges can make their own decisions about who gets the money and for what criteria. Um, Then these are the raw numbers about how many students applied for need-based aid. That's line B. They break out first year versus undergraduate. Just because your student applies for financial aid doesn't mean that the college is going to be determined that they need financial aid. So that's line C. Number of students in line B who were determined to have financial need. You can see that 291 students applied, but the college decided that only 239 actually had a financial need. And of that 239, 238 were actually given financial aid. I don't know what happened to that one person, but I don't know why that they were determined to have need and didn't get it, but that's what they decided to do. Okay, and this is uh, need-based aid. Let's also go down. Here's another important piece of information. On average, this is line I, the percentage of need that was met of the students who were awarded any need-based aid. So just a college can determine that your student should get need-based aid. They can award them need-based aid, but it doesn't mean that they are going to award them the full amount of what they were determined to have a need for. So in this case, Whitman says if we find that your student has financial need, we give them financial need for financial aid, we're going to give them up to 98% of what the need is that they have. That's actually very good. The most generous need-based colleges are honestly the Ivies. They give 100% of need. So if your student is determined to have, a financial need of $50,000 and they get into one of those selective schools, that's the hard part, then those colleges will give your student $50,000 of financial aid because they're going to give 100% of what the student needs. So women's actually pretty high at 98. There's lots of colleges that will give need-based aid, but they will only give 50% of what your student needs, 40%, 60%. So this line I is important to look at because again, you could have financial need. The college can say, yes, we agree you had financial need, but we're only going to give you enough aid that covers, 60% of your need. And this is all information you can be finding out ahead of time before you even maybe visit a college, before your student applies to a college. You can use these numbers to estimate how much need-based aid your student's going to get and how much merit scholarship your student might get, in addition to, of course, running the net price calculators. Okay, let's keep going. This is another important section. It's line N. Wait, let me just scroll a little bit up, make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, yeah. So line N, number of students who in line A, which is, how many students enrolled in the college, number of students who had no financial need but who were awarded institutional non-need based scholarships or grant aid. So all of that information says merit scholarships. So line N is the merit scholarship line. So the number of students who were awarded merit scholarships was 143. Let's see how many students there was in line A. Line A was 390. These are 390 were the number of freshmen who enrolled. And of those freshmen, 143 were offered merit scholarships because they didn't have any need-based aid. And on average, the amount of merit scholarships that those students received was, let's say, 22,000 or, just under $22,000. So this is where the merit scholarship information comes from. We do calculations to just quickly show you what percent of students who don't have financial need actually get merit scholarships. But I bet you these 143 students also had a strong SAT score. They were in, or ACT score. They were in that top 75th percentile, or they had a very strong GPA. So, the 143 students weren't randomly picked. They were probably the much stronger students of the pool of students who applied to Whitman. Okay, and then if you're interested, there's information about, the loans, what number of students actually are taking out federal loans, what's the average, loan balance that students have. And that's all I'm going to show you today from the actual common data set. But let me also show you. So that's, I think, all interesting information. Um, but it's a little hard. Let me, sorry. Let me pull up another tab. Oh, I know why. It's a little hard to um, get all of that information, if you want to do what I would call a reverse lookup. Like, what if you want to find the schools that offer merit scholarships and where your student has that strong academic profile? You can't go college by college looking at the college's common data set. I mean, you can, but you don't know if you're missing a college out there because, you might not have even known about it. So you wouldn't have even looked up the common data set. So that's why we created our tool called Insights is because we have all of the important information related to the common data set that I showed you tonight. We don't have every piece of common data set information, but we have the common data set information from those admission factors that we talked about. We have obviously the admit rates, we have yield rates, we've got what percentage of the classes accepted early decision. We have merit scholarship numbers. We've got, what percentage of the class is awarded merit scholarships. We've got what percentage of the class gets need-based aid, what percentage of somebody's need is actually covered by the college. So we gathered all of the information that we think is important that if you want to now do like a reverse lookup and say, your student might have a SAT score of 1300. So let's see all of the colleges that can offer your student merit scholarship. So that's the purpose and the value of our insights tool. So, oh, actually, let me go to, I'm sorry, Discover, um, and show you the tables that we have. This is actually one huge table of all you can see there's lots of columns of data. And then you can filter this data set by any column that's here. So let's look. You can see down here we have data on 3,925 colleges. Um, but let's do a filter. You can filter by majors. You can filter. There's like general categories of majors, and then within the general, there's specific categories. You can filter by states or regions that you're interested in. You can actually filter by cost of attendance. Maybe you want to look at all the colleges without any merit aid or need-based aid that cost $50,000 or below. You can do that. You can look at the colleges within your state that have in-state tuition of a certain dollar amount or out-of-state colleges. So we have, all this data that you can be filtering on. And we actually also have where we've done the math to say on average, let's say Whitman, let's actually pull up Whitman here. And look at it. There's Whitman College. We can scroll at it here, but if I click on it, we can see the detail page for it. So here's Whitman's endowment per student. This information was in the common data set. I just didn't point it out, but what percentage of the freshman class actually returns? Sorry, what percentage of the freshman class returns for sophomore year. This is the retention rate. This is very good. 89% is actually on the high side. So usually it's around 80%. So obviously students are really liking and enjoying Whitman, that they're coming back. Here's the breakout of men versus women, which we saw. So 55% of undergraduates are women versus males. And then there's the ethnicity information. Here's the admission factors, which we talked about, which were considered very important versus, actually, it's interesting. We have that recommendations were listed as important, but they weren't listed on that common data set like that. But this is the information that they sent into Peterson. So that's kind of interesting. And here's the information about the AC, the 75th percentiles for the ACT, 75th percentile for the SAT. Um, but here's another piece of information which is interesting. Let's look about, so this is where I said we did some of the math. So for freshmen that don't have need, right? So you don't have any need-based aid, 39% of those freshmen are also being offered merit scholarships. And on average, this is exactly the number we saw in the common data set. Those freshmen are getting an average of, just under $22,000 in merit. Um, and here's the other number that we saw. If you do have financial need, then Whitman is giving you 98% towards, they're covering 98% of your financial need. So, all this is all the information that lines up on the common data set. The other information we have is what we call crowdsourced offers. These are actual offers of students or parents sharing what their student got from the college. So the numbers up here, the college reported that information, and the numbers down here are what parents are saying that they actually got. And, sometimes they line up, sometimes there's anomalies. You can see this is kind of interesting. And this is from this academic year, or sorry, this admission year. So this is students who are going to start college in the fall of 2026. So they're starting to get their offers. This parent or this family from offer three is claiming that they got a merit award of 48,500. That could be the case. Just because the average was 22,000, there could be some merit scholarships, like presidential scholarships, that are higher. And obviously, this student got it. This student from offer two also got a pretty high merit scholarship, and they got need because you can see that their SAI, which for those of you who, maybe you've calculated that's what the FAFSA is going to look at. Their SAI is 15,000, which is definitely on the low side. A family with an SAI is 15,000 is likely to have financial need. So Whitman gave them both financial need and merit scholarship information, dollars. Um, and I am guessing that the student from offer one was offered neither amounts. So this data, this information, this crowdsourced information is only available if you're a paying member of Insights. And quite honestly, this is kind of pretty valuable information that I don't really know of any other sites that have it. We've spent the past 5 years collecting it, or even longer. Look, we have all this past year's worth of data. You can look at last year from Whitman. We have more offers. There's obviously different schools have different popularity. We've got a lot of offers from schools like Northwestern, Penn State, University of Wisconsin, Beloit. I mean, there's we might have 60 offers from last year, but even 9 offers are kind of worthwhile and interesting to look at. Again, you can kind of see there's a range of different merit amounts. Even though Whitman said their average is about 22,000, there are students that are definitely getting in the 40s from Whitman, even in the 30s. So by looking at this data, if I was a parent and my student was interested in going to Whitman, I would kind of dig further and say, okay, how did that student get 42,000 in merit? Is there a specific scholarship out there for that dollar amount? And I would really start, questioning in a nice way the admissions office and say, how can my student get the most merit? Are there scholarships that we need to be aware of? Do they have deadlines? Do they have extra essays? But Whitman's definitely giving the money. Now you just have to find out how they're giving it. Okay, let me go back to the Discover tables and show you how you do the filters. Okay, so here is the filter. We've selected what you see here is what we assume are the most popular data points that people like to filter on, but you can pick any of the data points that we have in the table to filter by, in case you don't see anything here that we defaulted to. But let's look at, um, we want to look at maybe let's just say we have a budget and we don't want to spend more than 50,000 for our student to go to college for a year. And so I'm going to look at, I want to see all the colleges that have a net cost after merit that are going to be 50,000 or less. So we want them to be less than or equal to 50,000. I'm going to put in my 50,000. And then I'm also going to put, well, let's actually just do one filter at a time. Let's apply that filter. Okay, so you can see we had data for 3,900 colleges. Now we've kind of cut that in half, and now there are 1,997 colleges that cost $50,000 or more after they award merit scholarships. But now I want to put in my students' stats because, I want to find the best colleges that are going to appreciate whatever, stats my student might have. So I want to go and look at, let's say, that my student has a 1350. So I want to find where the SAT 75th percentile is between, I'm going to say 1300 to 1400. Okay. And now let's see what that drops to. Oh, there's the big drop. Now, all of a sudden, there's 115 colleges that have a net cost of $50,000 or below, and where my student is in the 75th percentile, at least according to their SAT score. Now, I want to maybe like search or look at these colleges a little bit more. So I want to look at their merit scholarship information. And let's just go to this column, which is the this is the average merit scholarship amount given to freshmen who don't have need. It's next to the column that is the net cost after merit. And I can sort any of these columns in ascending or descending order. So let's sort this one. Oops, okay, sorry, we want to go the other way. Okay, so now I have, sorry, I'm just moving things around so I can see this. Okay, so now I know which of these colleges, I just actually sorted it by merit amount. I could actually also sort it by the net cost after merit. But looking at the merit amount, Kalamazoo is giving, gosh, little over $48,000 on in average merit to students at their school. Um, Beloit, which is I know is pretty generous, is offering just under $45,000. So you can see that if your student, has those type of test scores or higher, they could potentially attend Beloit College for $35,000, which, still is expensive, but is not those outrageous prices that we're hearing, in the 80 or 90 or even 100,000, over 100,000 for some of the priciest schools around. Clarkson College is also, I mean, these are all obviously you can see very generous colleges. And this is how you use the data to find the colleges that can offer your student merit scholarships and also filter down the results based on a budget that you might have. I just want to show you some of the admission information because it's important to also look at some of the schools that offer early decision and what that information looks like. And one of the filters is also early decision. So I want to look at the schools that have early decision. And let's see what the numbers come out to be. So there's 241 colleges with early decision. And we actually put in their deadlines. And here is the early decision data. So let's sort this. So these are the schools, and again, this is not early decision data from, this past December. This is early decision data from the December before, because even if we wanted to include early decision data from this December, so many schools haven't really reported it yet. That's actually something that's been going on for the past like 5 years, that schools have just decided to not share their early decision results until like over the summer. So that's another reason why asking for the most up-to-date information isn't going to really be available until the summertime. But so this is still gives you a sense of kind of relevance. Um, so schools like Columbia, they had an early decision admit rate of 13%, but their overall admit rate was 4%. And so, I'm not saying that applying early decision, gives you an advantage, maybe a little one, but the reason why it dropped so much to 4% is because if you look at this column, the percent of class filled early decision, Columbia filled over 50% of their class early decision, to be exact, 54%. So that means that there are fewer spots available for regular decision, but a lot more students apply. That's why the admit rate overall was 4%. And actually, you can see we break it out. The admit rate for just the regular decision applicants was 3%. So, you know, if your student wants to apply early decision, I highly recommend that you look at these stats just to understand how the colleges operate and kind of, how they're using early decision. Some schools, offer it. Kalamazoo, obviously not as selective as Columbia, but they aren't using it the same way. They also offer early action, and they're hardly really, accepting much of their class early decision. But if you look down here, you can see, a lot of the selective schools are taking over 50% of the class early decision. Carnegie Mellon is offering early decision, but they're, taking a third of their class early decision. So just important to understand these numbers. In fact, let's actually sort this column. And you're gonna see, okay, here's where some of the numbers get wonky. We don't even, I mean, Advent Health University, never even heard of it, but they probably didn't share the accurate information. And so I would ignore that. But I would start looking at this at like Claremont McKenna. They take 71% of the class early decision. I didn't even know that. I realized that. That's really high. Middlebury, I did know Middlebury is taking also like 69% of the class early decision. These are really high numbers. So to me, what this is saying is if your student is interested in any of these colleges, then they really should be applying early decision because it's just going to be that much tougher to get accepted regular decision. So I hope that this gives you an idea of how you use the common data set. And if you're interested in signing up for insights, to just make the use of the common data set easier to do your research with, I'm just putting the link in the comments. And let me see what your questions are. So let's see, that's it. I'll just go from the end. That is a cost per year, and merit aid renews every year. So yes, the numbers here are annual numbers. So the costs that are listed here are just for 1 year. Merit aid generally renews every year. But that's a good question. A lot of times, sometimes people look at the cost of attendance and they say, oh, is that for 4 years? Unfortunately not. These are 1 year costs. How often do I update insights? That's kind of, that was why I went through all of that information about the um, what the age of the data is. We update the data in the July, August timeframe, and that's because that's when our source, Peterson's, compiles most of the common data sets from all the colleges. And again, most colleges don't really have all of their common data set information together for the most recent academic year until about April through June. And then by the time it gets compiled for all of them, we usually get it around July. Wait, how did you get to the little black box where you typed merit? Oh, that was just my control F. That's just me to try and navigate around the table faster. So I just did a control F and then typed in merit. So that's you can type that in for anything. You can do control F and then type in SAT if you want to find the SAT column or find the net cost column. Okay, so hope that helps you to get around faster. Um, so does any of the info reflect major specific information like computer science, pre-med, nursing? Um, I have to admit, no. I wish it did. Colleges just don't break out their admission data by majors. There's a handful of colleges. I'm going to say like maybe five or less that have that information. University of Virginia sometimes puts that out. University of Illinois does a great job putting that information out, but overwhelmingly, the majority of colleges do not share admission data by major. Do you need to pay for the site to see this information? So this site is called insights.roadtocollege.com. You can create a free account. With the free account, you can do some searching and filtering. You can't see the crowdsourced information that I showed you, the crowdsourced offers. That's our most valuable information. But you can do some filtering. You can create a few lists, but it's limited. The free account's limited to just, give you an idea of what you can do. The paid version shows you everything that I showed you tonight. We have two plans. There's a monthly plan or an annual plan. You can, choose whichever you want. With the annual plan, you'll also get invited to webinars that we do, and you'll get discounts to one-on-one services if you want to. But a lot of people do the monthly plan and they might do it for a few months and they'll do all their research and then, they move on to something else, which is perfectly fine. Okay, so let me see any other questions. How do I find premium only and live sessions on the website? I am a premium member. So if you are a premium member, if you go to the dashboard and then you go in this library, you will quite honestly, you'll see all of these webinars will be available to you if you're a premium member. If you're not a premium member, then you'll see all these webinars, but it might have a label that says, for premium members only, and you won't be able to click in. So if Shelly, if you're having problems, feel free to email me at debbie@roadtocollege.com and I will look into your specific account. If for some reason you paid to be a premium level and it's still not showing you the premium webinars, then I will look into it. And we also have live sessions. We actually have a live session tomorrow night, once a month with a former dean of admission. So you will get invites to those live sessions as well. Does early action or early decision affect the amount of merit and or financial aid students are offered? So for early decision, well, actually for early decision or early action, I would say need-based aid. It doesn't impact the amount of need-based aid a college is going to offer. It could impact the amount of merit scholarships a college is offered. And I have to say, it's not a black or white answer. It's going to vary. Some colleges might hold back on what they would offer from merit scholarships if your student is applying early decision or early action because they might feel like, well, that student is already interested in coming, so why should we spend as much money by giving them merit scholarships because it's more likely that they're going to attend. And other colleges might actually not have a change of policy and give the same amount of merit scholarships whether they apply early or regular. And and so it definitely varies. You can ask that question to the admissions office. You may get a honest answer. You may not, but I would definitely ask and try. You can also look at if you become a paying member of Insights, you can look at the crowdsourced data because we ask people who share the information what admission cycle their student was accepted. And so you can see if students with similar academic profiles applied regular decision and applied early decision, and if they got the same amount of money or not, that could be another clue. So it's not, I wish I had a straightforward answer, but it's a little nuanced. And I would run the net price calculator at any school your student is applying to. So, hope this was helpful. It's kind of running late, so I'm going to say good night, stop sharing, and thank you everybody for showing up tonight. If you have questions, always feel free. You can email me at debbie@roadtocollege.com. Ask questions in the Paying for College Facebook group. Lots of really helpful parents there, and I wish everyone luck. And we have lots more webinars, so just look out in your emails for other events we have, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Good night.